So basics of chainmail, the first thing you need is two pairs of pliers. Um, I hate myself. That's why I use the large pliers like this. Other people use the curved nose pliers or smaller pliers. Um, I use these large pliers for just about everything, including tiny, tiny little rings like this. Is this other camera on? Let's see. So even for rings this small, I use these pliers. Like I said, I hate myself. I torture myself with things like this. Um, really, that's all you need to do chainmail is two pairs of pliers and rings. You can get rings from most craft stores these days. Walmart carries them in their craft section in some stores. Um, or you can get them online. There is the largest provider in the world, a gentleman named John out of Saskatchewan, Canada, runs a website, theringlord.com. He carries everything. Everything. You can even get pliers, cutters, wire, whatever you want, lots of different materials. I work mostly these days in anodized aluminum. That's the fun colors of aluminum. Um, and something called EPDM, which is basically rubber bands, latex-free rubber stretchy bands that you can also get in a bunch of different colors. Stretchy. So that's the basics of what you need. You can always have more toys, but you don't necessarily need them. One of the toys that I find useful is this right here. It's called a jump ring tool. It's a ring with a couple of slits in it so that I don't need two pairs of pliers, so that when I'm working on smaller rings, it's just one ring and the ring on my finger so that I can maneuver them a whole lot easier. If you want to go whole hog and get the full experience, you can make your own rings. You need wire, a thing that you are spinning the wire around called a mandrel, bolt, long dowel, what have you, and something to turn that mandrel. And then you make a giant spring and cut the rings apart. I do all of my cutting with these miniature bolt cutters. They do a decent job when I'm cutting rings. I have mostly stopped cutting my own rings because when you go into the anodized aluminum, you can end up scratching the finish and stuff like that. So rings, pliers, go forth. How do you know what rings to be using? Well, first you have to figure out what material you want to make it out of. Like I said, I'm mostly working in anodized aluminum. It's easy. You can get the fun colors. You can work in steel, titanium, niobium, brass, silver, gold, whatever. Aluminum's easy. It gets you the fun colors, and it's relatively inexpensive. Um, Now, I will say one thing about my pliers. I have made a modification to them in that I have ground the teeth down on them so that I am less likely to scratch my anodized aluminum rings, because you can do that. But they still hold the ring. So we've got our wire, we've made our rings. What size rings? Well, first thing you need to understand is there's a little bit of math in this. You need to know the aspect ratio, which is the diameter of the ring divided by the thickness of the wire. We can get a bunch of different sized rings. Here we've got the same size wire with different size ring. And then we've got the same sized ring with different wire. We've got all of that with our in different aspect ratios. Your aspect ratio is going to tell you how tight the wire weave is. So I like, for both the weaves we're going to be doing, I generally work in about an aspect ratio of 4, which means that the ring is 4 times the thickness of the wire. It gets you a fairly tight weave. It looks decent, lays nicely, things like that. Now, on this next slide, you can see a lot of the different ring sizes and wire diameters that gives you an idea. This is all courtesy of the Ring Lord on their website. Again, not an advertisement, but it's a wonderful resource. Their forums are very active and lots of tutorials. They sell kits, all that nonsense. The other great place for information is mailartisans.org. And they have a lot of information as well. They're a little bit snobby. They spell mail M-A-I-L-L-E, artisans. But they've also got phenomenal forums. They've been around since like 2002, and they're very active. So 2 pairs of pliers, rings, we go to town. European 4-in-1 is the first one we're going to teach. That is the basic armor chainmail. You start with a ring. Most of your rings, if you buy them or make them, will be slightly open. That's how you want it. You're going to take, I am a very, 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 very devout evangelist of closures. The ring closure should be smooth, because that's what's going to snag and destroy the work. So I'm going to close a ring. Set it aside. Going to take a second ring. I do 2 steps in that I always close it and feel the ring, because that's the easiest way to tell that it's not misshapen. It's going to close nicely. Then I open it back up. Now, notice when I'm opening and closing the ring, I'm not opening it like this. It's not a circle anymore. We're opening and closing it by twisting. That keeps it a circle. Open it back up a little bit, take that closed ring, hang it on. Now, you see how much I'm picking rings up and setting them down? When I'm working in smaller rings, that's when this jump ring tool becomes very useful because I don't have to set it down. I've got a hand free so that I can just keep working. Take another ring. Set it aside. Lather, rinse, repeat. Again, I check my closures. I shouldn't be able to feel any rough spots, things like that. If I'm working in steel or what's called bright aluminum, which is basically raw aluminum wire, you can actually cheat and take your pliers and sort of file them down a little bit if you need to, so that your closure is nice and smooth. Now, all 4 of those rings that I just did are going around that same first ring to create 4 rings on 1 ring. European 4 in 1. You can take and lay it out, and you'll see this in pictures quite often. That's your standard European 4 in 1. Again, 4 rings in 1. Every ring is going to have 4 rings going through it. So as you're weaving and adding to it, you just, sometimes you're expanding. And so if you want to make it wider, you're taking 1 ring and just grabbing 2 of the rings. Now, grabbing the rings, I'm holding it the way it's going to be laying, and I'm adding 1 ring to the side, basically making a 1 in 2 chain or 2 in 1 chain. Doesn't look like much, but when you lay it down, it's back to being our 4 in 1 chainmail. Now this ring, the green that I just added, I'm going to add 2 more rings to that. So that again, I've got that one green ring that has 4 rings going through it. Nice, simple, 2-in-1 chain. Now I want to make more of a sheet. Well, take a ring, you're going to add this pink ring and going to grab 2 rings that are side by side. So the green was added by going, so they stack up nicely. The pink, I'm going to go down through the purple ring, come back up through the red ring, and then close it. One of the hardest parts, particularly with the smaller rings that you work in, is keeping them oriented correctly so that as you're working on things, it stays flat. It's very easy to end up with it twisting as you're working on it, and you wanted to expand in one direction, and all of a sudden you've managed to lay it down the wrong direction, and oh, I wanted to make it longer, not wider. Done it. T-shirts, bumper stickers, the whole 9. So I'm going to take and continue sort of my pattern here. Again, I'm just going down through one ring, coming back up through the other, and closing. So that it's now two rings all the way across, except these first 2 rings that I did have 4 going through them. The 2 that I just added only have 2 rings each. So it's just a matter of adding those other colors back into it. Lather, rinse, repeat. This is what I refer to as knitting with metal. So again, I'm going to go up one side, down the other, and close it. Just grabbing one ring here because I'm working on the end. And one ring over here. Now, I'm not opening the rings all the way up. I'm trying not to stretch the metal or anything like that. There we are. Start of a sheet. All right, I've got a section made. I've got another section here made. I want to link them together. Well, let's see. First thing you've got is the orientation of the weave. You've got these center rows going this direction. These center rows are going the other direction. Well, if I flip this over, oh, it's the same thing. Roll it around. Yeah, I screwed up my color order. My bad. But makes it easier to see how I'm going to join these together. It's relatively simple. We are just going to add a ring between the pink and the green rings here. Down, up, up, down. Ta-da, back to our standard 4-in-1. So just added the black and gold rings. And connected the two sections together. And you don't have to keep it square or rectangular. You can, again, work by making each row one longer than the other, and make diamonds, trapezoids, what have you. But that's European 4-in-1. Just hangs out. The other weave that we're going to discuss is Byzantine, also known as birdcage. It's a box chain weave that you can do a lot of cool things with. Again, I like working with the stretchy rings because then I don't have to worry about clasps for bracelets, things like that. It just fits. Start, once again, with a ring and close it. Set it aside. Another ring. Close it. Set it aside. Let's see. Third ring. Set it aside. Once again, this is why when I'm working with the stretchy rings, it's way faster because half the rings are already closed. Set it aside. Now, taking a ring, so this ring has a little bit uneven. I can take my pliers and gently squish, which is going to lift one side up, push the other side down, get that closure nice and smooth. Open that ring back up. Put all 4 rings on it. Do it again. Grab all 4 rings. Now we've got a 2-in-2 chain here, in that we've got 2 rings and 2 rings and 2 rings. To go to Byzantine or birdcage, we're going to take 2 of those rings and fold them back. And go and catch them that way. So I'm going to take another ring here. So again, taking 2 of my rings, folding them back, pushing it down, and going through the center. And then do it again. Our first little bird cage. Now we're going to grab those 2 rings. And just run 2 more. So Byzantine is a very quick, very easy weave to do, because It's just 2 rings in 2 rings in 2 rings. Keep going. It's going to fold over a bunch of times. It's going to fight with you, but it always comes back to where it's supposed to be. And you just keep going. If I'm working on very small rings doing this, I will do things like take a safety pin and grab one end so that I can hold it so it doesn't get jumbled up as I'm going. And that way I can just keep it stretched out, pin it to my shirt, something like that, and just keep working. Now, sometimes you'll get rings like this that don't have a good closure. You can see that there's a little bit of space on that closure there. You can just grab and gently work it back and forth and get rid of that gap. That way you've got a nice clean closure. It's one of those things that I look at when I go to craft fairs and things like that and see people selling chainmail. Wander up and I run my finger across the rings, compliment their work, find out how long they've been doing it, find out, are you aware that some of your closures suck? I mean that nicely, but one doesn't have to feel like it's a wool blanket. It should be smooth. Usually, when there's an issue with the closures, it's because they're using hand cut rings, which is cut by like the miniature bolt cutters or wire cutters, and they end up with little points that don't line up very nicely. Or you can get saw cut rings like this one. It's kind of hard to see because it's so reflective, but you end up with 2 very nice parallel sides so that they actually line up very, very well. Word of warning, if you do stuff in the smaller rings, jewelry size, they will go shooting out of your pliers. It's going to happen. You will find rings like confetti or glitter days or weeks later because they have bounced out of the pliers, shot across the room, never to be seen again. And it's going to happen. I've got rings that I'm finding in colors that I haven't had on hand in years that have gone shooting off, and move a piece of furniture, look around and be like, huh, that's where that ring went. Now, with Byzantine, you can see that each time you do one of the little bird cages, the rings attaching to it rotate 90 degrees. So that you've got a pattern here. Makes it a lot easier when you're trying to get a specific length so that you can figure out that, oh, each 90-degree rotation is this long. I need a necklace that's going to be 6 sets. Or my standard bracelets with the stretchy rings is 20 bird cages. Just very easy to do the math. Just count them and go. This is why I refer to this as my knitting, because when you get into the swing of things, you can stop paying attention for the most part, unless you're like trying to get certain colors in certain orders. If you're just doing 2 colors, you just keep working. Just your hands just roll over and over and over again. 2 rings in 2 rings in 2 rings. Round and round. So you've got your chain the length that you want, and you're going to make it a closed ring. You've got to connect it back to itself. Well, first things, you want ideally the flat rings pair to be 90 degrees apart from each other so that it continues the pattern of ring facing this way and rings facing that way. So grab 2 rings. Now I'm going to grab 1 ring. I'm going to fold over, grab the 2 rings from the other end, and then the second ring from the first end. Close it up. If I pull this, you can see how that bird cage is going to sit, or it can fold back on itself here and start you on a mess that if you've walked away from the piece for a little while, you come back and you find that and you're like, what did I do? And you take a moment and play with it and it falls back where it's supposed to. And then I'm going to grab the silver, 2 black, and the silver. Byzantine, 2 and 2. Birdcage chain. All right. That's about it.